Burnout. We've all been through it at some point of our lives, and as much as you want to avoid it, it arrives all the same. But why is that? Now, of course, there's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to burnout, but obviously, this video will be focusing on anime and manga. It's kind of funny looking into the concept of Animanga Burnout because the mere idea of being tired of watching Japanese cartoons or Japanese comic books sounds silly, but by the end of this video, the silliness will start to disappear and you will end up finding things that you may have not even be aware of when it comes to being burnt out. My name is Will, and here's what I like to call the struggle of Animanga Burnout. First, we have to make the separation between anime and manga. I know, no shit, but the experience when it comes to reading manga and watching anime are distinctly different. And because of that, some reasons as to why people might be burnt out from reading manga will not be the same as people being burnt out from watching anime. There are some overlaps, but we'll get there. So to start, let's talk about the visual medium that is anime. A huge deal when it comes to getting into anime is keeping up with seasonal stuff. Of course, there are going to be some shows you might not be into, but if you do look hard enough, you'll find plenty to watch. And then comes having to keep up with that on a weekly basis. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a stacked season with about 10 plus heavy-hitting shows that are basically must watch and having to keep up with all of these shows that come out on separate days. Maybe you might be able to keep up for like a week or two, but after that you might honestly say screw it and just watch 3 shows that interest you the most and drop the rest with the promise of going back to those shows you dropped, but you never end up doing so. That's burnout. Then there's also watching seasonal anime within the same genre and not expanding your horizon to something different. When you do that, you set yourself up to be tired of watching the same tropes and concepts within that same genre, which speeds up the process of being burnt out. Binging already finished anime can lead to burnout, but for very different reasons. I mean, you don't have to worry about keeping up with said show on a weekly basis and just go at your own pace, right? Here's where things get a bit tricky. Some anime are like 12 to 24 episodes long, so you could probably knock them out in a day or two. But then we get into longer anime. An example is Gintama. Absolutely love the series. My favorite in the entire medium of anime. But imagine trying to watch 367 episodes straight without watching anything else. If you don't absolutely love Gintama in its totality, then this is a genuine recipe for the most lethal burnout of all time. Then there's the immense pressure of having so many finished anime spanning over multiple decades out there for you to watch, basically having endless options. People who have a completionist mindset will most definitely try to consume as much as possible, no matter how quickly, which at some point is going to get unbelievably draining and thus reaching burnout. This is a perfect segue into talking about manga burnout, since the more you look into anime burnout, the more similarities between the two will start to appear. When it comes to experiencing manga, there are a few things that you should consider before investing your time into it. The main one is the release schedule. Unlike anime being an usual weekly endeavor, there are some manga that are not weekly serializing but actually bi-weekly, monthly, quarter-monthly, or worse, in hiatus. There are times when investing in a manga on a weekly basis will have you feel like you're dragging yourself to read chapters even if you slowly but surely start forgetting past plot points. This gets amplified even more when a manga is bi-weekly or god forbid monthly. If you don't feel like rereading as you wait for new chapters, then oh boy, you're going to feel lost by the time said chapters drop. Then there's the binging aspect of reading manga. In my personal experience, binging manga is a lot easier than binging anime. You're at your own pace with how fast or slow you read and appreciate the nuances of the story and its art. But just like with anime, the faster you consume manga and don't take any sort of break, the faster you are hitting that mental block. Despite the differences between mediums, the overlaps of burnout are a lot more serious. The mere concept of burnout is the idea of being exhausted physically, or in this case, mentally. The joy you once had for your hobby slowly starts fading, making you question if you even enjoyed it in the first place. It's a bit ironic that the moment someone starts an entire channel on their hobby and try to monetize it, their original love for said hobby slowly starts to disappear and is no longer the same as it was before. more. That's exactly what happened to me. One of the biggest causes of burnout is depression, and as someone who has gone through it and still fights it to this very day, the moment I can point to where I could no longer mindlessly binge any anime or manga like I used to was the moment I started making YouTube videos. But why is that? After reflecting on my years of making YouTube videos, the reason why really was me trying to consume stories for the sake of making videos rather than just taking them for what they were. Not to say that I didn't enjoy what I was reading, but rather my enjoyment of stories were very reliant on what could be made into content. Then I looked deeper and realized that as I was doing that, my consumption was rather quick. Too quick. I remember reading Seven Deadly Sins almost a year ago, which is an extremely controversial manga that I read on a whim, seeing for myself if it was as bad as people claimed it was. I ended up reading the entirety of not only Seven Deadly Sins but also 137 chapters of the sequel, Four Nights of the Apocalypse, in the span of 2 weeks. That's 483 chapters. Obviously, I enjoyed myself reading Seven Deadly Sins, as I wouldn't have read not even a quarter of that if I did it, since I'm not shy in dropping something I don't enjoy outright. But if you were to ask me what happened midway through either story, I wouldn't be able to tell you unless I actively went back and reread it. Why can I tell you perfectly many plot points of a story like Bleach midway through, but I can't do the same for Seven Deadly Sins if my experiences with both series were binging through them? The answer to that question, you guessed it, is burnout. Back when I binged Bleach, I didn't have any expectation or thought process in regards to content creation or what I could possibly do. I just simply sat down and enjoyed the story so much that I couldn't stop watching. Reading Seven Deadly Sins was basically me being capable of stopping to read said story and wanting to get through with it as quick as possible, not really taking everything in and retaining the information. And like I established earlier, if you don't take any sort of break and you don't slow things down, you can be burnt out. And this is exactly what happened to me. This is why reading Undone Unlock on the channel was such an anomaly for me, because I basically made content out of my reading experience with it and managed to break through the burnout that I was in by doing the very thing that put me in said spot to begin with. So we arrive at the biggest question of this video: how do we beat Animanga Burnout? I am not a psychologist, nor will I pretend to be one. However, the best way to beat burnout of any kind is to acknowledge and solve the source of your problem. If you're someone that suffers through depression of means aside of any manga, then trying to fix that should be your first step. Another way is to reduce your consumption of any manga. It's perfectly okay to slow down and not let FOMO, fear of missing out, hijack your experience. You can throw in old or new hobbies on your day-to-day to keep things balanced and not crash into burnout once again. If even that doesn't seem to work, then the last and most effective way to beat burnout is take a break. Any manga is not going anywhere anytime soon, so why rush it? Being tired of anime and manga is a valid feeling to have, and that doesn't mean you hate the hobby. Simply, you have consumed so much of it that the novelty and enjoyment isn't there anymore. And so, the best way to bring that novelty back is to take a break from it. Doesn't matter how long, and by the time you come back, that feeling will return in spades. Some may be fully done with anime and manga, and that's okay as well. But if you still have love and appreciation for the hobby, then a break might truly be the way to go. Burnout is a topic that is very prominent when it comes to video games, movies, music, but I feel like any manga burnout wasn't discussed as much or taken as seriously, so I feel like talking about ways it can happen and my own experience with burnout to help others. I am very curious if you have ever been burnt out with any manga and how you managed to beat it. Leave that in the comment section down below, as I'm very curious to see what you guys say on the matter. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like as well as subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos from yours truly. And with that, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are. See you guys next time.